want to thank, oh, we're keeping it honest. I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight for what is the first of 4 Thrive Talks this year. For those of you who don't know what Thrive is the Community Mental Health Center here serving the communities of Oak Park and River Forest. Our intention at Thrive is to provide programs that simply put, create a healthy community. So these Thrive Talks began about 2 years ago when we got together with the Program Development Committee, and we wanted to bring relevant and important topics that affect people in our community. Over these last 2 years, we have programs that dealt with anxiety in children, creating peaceful families, social media and technology's effect on families, health crisis of suicide. We've talked about domestic violence and gender violence. We talked about dealing with family members who have dementia. And we talked about hope for family and friends for people who live with someone with an addiction. We've had a program on better parenting. And tonight, and like all the other programs that we've had in the past, they've all been recorded and they are all available to you on the Thrive website. So feel free to just go to Thrive and you will see I believe it's a resource and then a media drop down, and you can look at any of the talks that have occurred in the past. Tonight, we are certainly focusing on what is a absolutely unique experience for all families around the world. You know, my joke is that I finally learned how to spell unprecedented. And it's really true. In fact, the other joke is that we've used unprecedented an unprecedented amount of times because there really is nothing for us to fall back on and really to have even learned from. So we're in the middle of creating, and so it really felt so important for us to kick off our Thrive Talks season addressing the challenges of e-learning, working from home, and trying to maintain a healthy and happy family. And so tonight I am so happy to be able to introduce you to these wonderful panel members who contribute to this community in so many different ways and have offered their time to be with us to share their thoughts, their experiences, and really to be able to help us kind of navigate these really unusual times. So let me begin by introducing you first to Heidi Hamernik. Heidi and I, Heidi was a board member for 7 years of Thrive. I got to know her as a board member, and also she and I kind of co-led the Program Development Committee. So I know what a wonderful and amazing person she is. She is a clinical psychologist. She has a private practice. She's been doing neuropsych testing for the past 25 years. She did her residency at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's in pediatric psychology. Her work focuses on children, adolescents, and their families. She has specialties with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, learning disabilities, anxiety, depression, neurodevelopmental disorders, and eating disorders. Welcome, Heidi. Thank you so much for being here and for all that you do for Thrive.
Thank you.
Secondly, we have, and I'm going to get this, Lori Janu-Chossek.
Yeah.
Now I can relax. Lori has been a school social worker for 20 years. 13 of those years, she's been at District 97 working at By School. Prior to her social work, she has background working with survivors of domestic violence, crisis intervention, and suicide risk assessment. She's worked with adolescents, specifically runaway youth, and with Head Start focusing on early childhood. Lori, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Doug Hill. Doug is beloved at the high school. Doug's been at the high school, OPRF, which is the Oak Park River Forest High School. I don't want to assume everyone listening here tonight is necessarily from town. Doug is in his 15th year as a special education teacher, where he works with people with diverse learning abilities. He co-teaches biology co-teaches biology mostly to 9th and 10th graders. And he also coaches girls varsity lacrosse. Doug, thanks so much for being here. Dr. Brooke Turnock is a general pediatrician, and she is the medical director of PCC Community Wellness Center. It's a federally qualified health center in the Austin community. Dr. Turnock received her medical degree from Michigan State University of Human Medicine and completed her pediatric residency at Rush University Medical Center. Dr. Turnock loves seeing kids in clinic and helping families raise healthy and happy kids. And so, as I see now that, wow, there are 1 million people who have joined our talk.
Yay! We won Zoom.
I'm really glad that Thrive paid the extra bucks to be able to accommodate all that. So let's turn it over to you, Heidi, and maybe you can just share some of your thoughts with our community.
Yeah, first, again, thanks everyone for joining in today. You know, in my practice, I've seen a very large range of responses to how children and their adults have responded to and coped with COVID and all of its ramifications. Some kids have been able to cope really well. And I have to say most I've seen coping really well, not to say it hasn't been difficult, but they've coped. While others have found this period to be more than challenging. And most families are somewhere in between. It's my experience that all families and all kids and all adults are trying their best and doing their best at this time. And even though there's constant changes, whether changes in school, changes at home, and all different facts of life that are happening at this time where there's so many different hats that parents are wearing these times, such as being a parent, you're an employee, you're a referee, you are a psychologist, as well as a teacher and a spouse. There's so much going on, and it's on a more intensive basis than ever before. And of course, as Steve was saying, there's no playbook to this. We haven't been in this at any time prior. So parents that I have been working with are very concerned, and questions that I often hear are, will my kid be learning this year? Will they be behind? Are they going to be physically safe? Will they get enough socializing? Are they going to be anxious or depressed? So what I hope to bring to the conversation this evening is to highlight some of those strategies to address a number of those social and emotional concerns that parents may be experiencing since COVID came to town. And specifically, what can parents and children and their families do to help them buffer against the negative effects of COVID, the emotional effects? And how can they learn to lean into change and enhance their social, emotional well-being during this time?
Thanks, Heidi.
Yes, and so I'm going to turn it over now to Lori.
Unmute,
Lori.
Lori.
Lori, mute.
And I would just want to remind everybody that the Q&A feature is open, the chat is open. Please feel free to start putting in your questions so we can make sure to address them. We're here to make this interactive.
Thank you. And I realized I probably need a t-shirt that says you're muted. I love that phrase this year. It happens a lot. But thank you, everyone, for the introduction. Thanks for having me here tonight. In addition to what Steve had mentioned, I'm an Oak Parker. This is my 19th year living in Oak Park. I do have two boys that attend public school. Their ages are 9 and 13. And like many of you, they've been remote learning since March. So my interest in the field of social work, specifically my niche, is childhood anxiety and also working with neuroatypical children. My older students would tell you that I'm into mottos and mantras, and what really guides my work with kids is how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that is the king of all coping skills, in my opinion, is really broadening that capacity for kids to sit with discomfort and know that they'll be okay. Another self-talk mantra that a lot of my older former students would say is, and one I use myself, is I can do hard things. So those are skill areas that I really focus my work on with kids, really expanding their self-awareness so they can do those things. I draw largely on acceptance and commitment therapy and CBT tools to handle those feelings. So since COVID began in March, like Heidi, you know, I've encountered with my work and my interfacing with parents just a general increase in parental distress and agitation, and associated with just how uncertain this all is. And the uncertainty over the course of the pandemic, conflicting guidelines from our government, and just the uncertainty of it. So, and it really does, as Heidi mentioned, affect every area of a family's typical functioning. She mentioned the different hats and the roles that parents wear. And I would concur, you know, just in regard to child rearing, kids' ability to socialize is different. It really affects their involvement in extracurricular sports, obviously education and extended family involvement. So all these various intersections, parents and children have had to adapt and pivot and kind of reimagine on the fly. So my goal here today is twofold. It's really, I come from a strengths-based lens, is reframing really this time of worry and difficulty to a slightly more strengths-based lens, one that can offer opportunities for new growth, new skills, and a development of additional capacities for both children and adults. A question in my parenting life, I continually ask myself in relation to, you know, everyday stress is what capacity needs to be developed here? What can we enhance it and improve upon? The other thing I hope to bring is to offer tangible and practical information about remote learning via Zoom, how to make the most of it, and tips for communication and partnership with the school, how school districts are also adapting to meet the social and emotional needs of children during this time. So thank you. And I'll turn it over to Doug next.
Hi, everyone. I am Douglas Hill, Doug Hill. I'm actually basically a lifelong Oak Parker. So my kids are 4 and 2. They're not quite in school yet, but I do have a niece that just started kindergarten in town. And my wife is a special ed teacher at Brooks Middle School. So we kind of see, you know, a little bit of everything throughout my my family and my extended family. It's kind of weird talking to a bunch of names on the screen, but, you know, I'm trying to get past that part of teaching right now as well, too. But, you know, between the spring and now, I've seen quite the range of reactions and responses between like the groups that I coach and the groups that I actually teach in school. Some students thrived or are thriving with this online model. And like Heidi was saying, some are, you know, that there are some challenges with this right now. And for me, you know, the biggest thing is making sure that, you know, as a teacher that I'm actually supporting the students in their social and emotional needs, as well as their academic needs. Because if the social and emotional piece is not really there for them, then I can't, you know, how can I expect learning to actually take place, especially over this kind of platform. I will say that like now that we're in the fall, like our school is much better set up to support those needs. And the best thing that I think, you know, for me that the parents and caregivers can do is just advocate for your students and your children, and find a way to develop a relationship with someone that you or your child like connects with in the building. Working with freshmen and sophomores, the biggest thing is just figuring out what to do, you know, and who to go to when you come into high school. But finding that one person can really help you navigate or guide you in the right direction while you're at OPRF. So with that, I'll pass it off to Dr. Turnock.
All right, hello everybody. Thanks, Doug. I'm Brooke Turnock, and as Steve said, I'm a pediatrician with PCC Community Wellness Center. My family and I have lived in Oak Park for 8 years, and I have 2 kids in District 97 and 1 at OPRF. I know we've all been reeling quite a bit these last 6 months, the medical community included. As with many other professions, we've had to rewrite the way we practice and add all sorts of new and ever-changing data into the way we care for children and families. We are making great efforts to stay on top of the latest evidence around COVID-19 and the potential consequences and outcomes as a result of this virus. Like Lori and Heidi said, I'm seeing, and Doug, seeing a lot of social emotional challenges for kids and families. But since that is their area of expertise tonight, from a more more sort of objective medical perspective. As a pediatrician, I'm seeing a number of trends in families and kids. Kids are gaining weight while stuck at home with easy access to food and less access to exercise. As we all comfort eat, everything to reward ourselves with while stuck at home, families' diets are hedging towards less healthy foods. While we all have certainly been doing our best to simply survive the last few months, hopefully families can move back towards more healthy habits. Nutritionists recommend involving kids in making food choices. It helps expand their palates and increases motivation to eat different kinds of foods. Families can consider packing kids' lunches and snacks as you would for a regular school day, even though they're at home, so that gives them kind of a concrete area to eat from. Have kids participate in picking healthy choices. Think about having kids help plan and make dinner as age appropriate. And even younger kids can help by rinsing vegetables, measuring ingredients, helping to chop some things. Additionally, try to set a small exercise goal each day. Again, I know we have 1,000 things to do, but every time they're on a break, shut that screen off and make them go outside or do jumping jacks or a 10-minute TikTok video. Even just a few minutes makes a big difference in mental health with exercise. There are tons of options online for quick exercise videos. A lot of the teachers in the younger classrooms use them all the time. My kids love Go Noodle to get up and just shake your body for a few minutes. Look for other activities outside and socially distanced, like tennis, biking, even kicking the soccer ball around. There are a lot of college kids home this year, so consider hiring a college kid that can supervise your kid at lunchtime or after school, entertain them outside to keep them busy and moving in a socially distanced way. And we all know family routines have been thrown for a loop, and kids are staying up late, watching TV, playing video games, not getting good sleep, and not getting consistent sleep. We've all been struggling to keep up with the day-to-day changes at home, at work, and within ourselves and families. Hopefully, life is stabilizing a little bit and we can work to reestablish some routines. Sleep is critically important to the health and well-being of children. Lack of sleep is associated with irritability, stress, inability to concentrate, difficulty learning, and anxiety and depression. Most school-age kids need a minimum of 9 to 10 hours of sleep. That's a lot of sleep when they're getting up early for school. Reset the bedtime clock to be at a normal time. Take screens away well before bedtime. Data shows that we sleep better if we are off screens for 2 hours before bedtime. I know that's not always feasible, but even a short break from screens before bed will help with sleep quality. And don't forget to go see your doctor. Offices are working really hard to keep families safe in clinic, and we want to see your kids for healthy checkups. We want to, and not only healthy well maintenance visits, but also to hear about any medical problems you might be having or mental, social, emotional problems. If you can't get in to see a psychologist, or you're not sure where to start, or if you need counseling or medication or any of those things, your pediatrician or a family practice physician is really a wonderful place to begin. And we can help with resources from our office.
Thanks, Brooke.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, there are questions now that are starting to come in. And, you know, a lot of the questions really have to do about isolation, have to do about kids being in front of a screen for 7 and 8 hours a day. There are, you know, really those kind of nuts and bolts questions of literally the logistics of e-learning. For instance, the first question that came in that I would like to just read out is that my son is in 7th grade and he's so lonely. We have had to especially be vigilant about quarantining due to one parent receiving chemotherapy. What are safe options for him to interact with peers? I don't know, Brooke, if you're the one that would take that one.
I can try. I hate to encourage more screen time because I know that's what we're all trying to avoid, but one of the ways the older teens and older kids do interact with each other socially is through video games, FaceTime, screens. I'm not a big proponent of social media in teenagers, but something along those lines to be able to talk to their friends virtually, distantly. I know at my house we've relinquished some of our tighter screen time rules in an effort to help my teenager with socialization as well, because he can, he's having virtual sleepovers online with his friends that way. Another thought is to have a small, group of friends, of a small handful of people that he could hang out in the backyard with or at a park. Maybe mom or dad sits close by and off in the corner, so he's quietly supervising if they're not old enough to be on their own, or if they are, somewhere near the house, could ride their bikes. Bike riding, I think, is really great because they can be socially distanced but still hanging out together.
Thanks.
Anybody have ideas?
Yeah, I know that I've also had kids and this was even in the throes of when it was quarantine. And the weather has to be nice, but people would just talk out from their windows and to each other, and it would be 10 to 12 feet distance, but they got together and they did games together, and it still worked. It was better than nothing. It wasn't ideal that they wanted, but it was something, and it helped the kids feel connected.
Yeah, I think this question was for, I might be mistaken, but older kids, but some tips for younger kids would be if you are doing something via a Zoom platform. Younger kids don't often, a lot of their interaction style is physical in nature. You don't see kindergarten and first and second graders typically just hanging out on a park bench conversing. And that's what is hard. I talk with lots of parents about Zoom, feeling like their younger kids aren't connected. So I recommend like more structure and do active things. So let's have a 15-minute play date. Don't make it too long, because that just kind of can drag on. So you want to kind of scaffold it to set it up for success. So a lot of, let's, make a list of 10 things and do a scavenger hunt. You can set a timer, 10 seconds, bring me something green. The kid runs off, brings, something green. Your favorite toy, all those things that are more active based and less conversational for younger kids can be really lighthearted and fun. So just a thought for some of the younger kiddos.
I would just say, like, even the community of people that are on this chat right now, someone might be able to reach back out to you via the chat and say, hey, I'm having the same thing, you want to meet up with our families and see if our kids want to hang out or something like that, because we're all here with these same concerns. And so, here's a great resource just right in front of us on our screens.
All right.
Well, let me just jump in with some other questions. Thanks for all you guys jumping in. I know we probably could have a 5-hour Zoom on this stuff. There's so much here, and we're getting some really, great questions. One of the questions is a family that has a first grader who looks like they finally accepted the daily Zoom, but they're not sure if she's really learning. And whether or not it's, there's boredom from a whole day of being on Zoom. So some kids are really cooperating, looking like they're participating. Any tips on how to, engage virtually with her teacher? What's the way to really engage with her so we get a sense of whether she's learning or not?
Yeah, I can take it, especially for young kids. I do know our district is heavy in progress monitoring. Teachers have a strong handle on where kids are at academically in the main core content subject areas. So I would really rely on your teaching team, especially once the few first weeks are kind of more structure is built in and more routines, and really defer to your child's teacher on that. And really to understand that learning is not a linear path. Kids shoot up quickly, they stay flat for a little bit. Even in a typical school year, learning is kind of jagged. So I would definitely talk with your child's teacher about benchmarking for reading and math that they do. I also think, for adults too that are working, you can talk with your child about what does it feel like to be bored. I think this is a really great way to build self-awareness in kids. Kids don't innately have a awareness of how their body feels or their mind feels in a particular moment in time. So it opens the door to conversations about engagement. Like, do you feel really excited about, math, or do you feel like you're spacing out and thinking about other things? So it really offers an opportunity for kids to really develop a self-awareness that they might not have had before, with what does it need, what do I need to get in my zone of learning? And kids, really young kids can do that. I have students that, are taking a shower before Zoom because they feel it wakes them up and they want to present their best self, to their classmates. So I think really opening the door for conversations about how their body feels, what are their feelings, offering a feeling word bank that spans different intensities. When kids only have an extreme intensity for things, they tend to go right there. But research shows that the more repertoire of words that kids have for those gray area feelings, they learn better coping with that. So I definitely think really talking about what a student needs to feel more involved is helpful.
Heidi, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I do want to just say something too. I think in some ways, sometimes boredom can be a gift because we're in a society where no one ever wants to feel bored. And from that, again, when you're checking in with yourself and building that self-awareness, can come change and helping that, whether it's a 7-year-old or a 17-year-old, discovering, well, what is it that else I can do, or what is it that I can be exciting, or how do you live through boredom and it's still okay. So I think those are all important too. And just other things too that I also see in just building that awareness with social emotional learning in that sense is, you know, do you have a real strong, is it a strong feeling? Is it medium? Is it small? You could use those words if you don't have sort of a feeling thermometer. And for little kids too, we will even put different faces by like a feeling thermometer, like a, you know, big happy face, a okay face, or a sad face. So that way they can also pick out these different feelings that they may be experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Brooke?
Just quickly from a practical standpoint too, the one thing about being at home is their whole curriculum is home with you. It's on the Zoom, it's on the Google Classroom, and all the paperwork is home. So you could, you know, I mean, maybe to answer this question, you're already doing this, but have your first graders sit down with you and look through the Google Classroom together and review what they did for the day. It takes a little bit of time, but that might give you a gauge as to what he or she is learning also. And if they can review it and talk through it, they learned it, you know, and if they can't, or they're not sure, then maybe you need to explore more with the teacher too.
So many of the questions that are coming in certainly are about people who and their particular age child and the challenges of that. But there's some people asking about the lack of joy they're having as parents, as adults at home, and are struggling to be resilient in the face of this, questioning whether or not the kids are really learning. Is this worth the struggle that they are having because their kids are, you know, when they're out of the room or on YouTube, and then they come in and the kids are jumping back onto the screen. You know, there are some real challenges in this. And I just want to put out there that, you know, maybe we need to talk a little bit about how parents can take care of themselves, how they can maintain relationships with their children without having the pressure of overseeing the school day. You know, there were 6 hours in the day when kids were away. Now they're home and they're put in a position of enforcing sort of an extension of the teacher, and it's interfering with relationships at home. Ideas about that for parents out there who are not exactly enjoying this? Heidi?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of that mantra is that everyone is trying their best. Everyone is trying to survive, and to not be hard on anyone's self, because well, that lack of joy comes from what is your expectation for this time and what is really happening. And so sometimes you, in order to find that balance and to bring some of that joy back, you may have to look at what can I let go? Are my expectations too high on certain things? Am I trying to do everything I was doing when it was COVID, when it wasn't COVID? Because it's not going to work the same way. And you're going to want to talk about that. And first of all, of course, being aware of your own feelings as an adult, to have a check-in on your anxiety, on your sadness, and to know, again, I know it's sort of cliche at this point, but that mask that comes down from the airplane, you've got to give yourself the oxygen mask first before you can give it to anyone else. And so I would say set realistic expectations. Figure it out, what can I control, what I cannot control at this point. Are we trying to do too much as it is? And, you know, validate yourself that there is a loss of things. You can share that loss. I wouldn't always share with your kids, but you can share loss with your friends and with your spouse. And really making sure you have time to do some things that do bring you joy. You do have a unique opportunity if you are working from home, are there things at home that you would like to do? I know that's not the case for everyone. There's some people who have to go into the job every day still and be there with many people and facing possible more COVID intense environments. But when you come home, are there things that you like doing? I would can even consider journaling some of these things, writing some of these down so that you can start to understand what it is that brings you joy, and to not be so assaulted by your own fears, but accept that it's there. Okay. Accept that if you're not feeling that joy at that moment, sit with it and see what can come through it. And I know, Lori, you may have some ideas too about, a lot of this is like acceptance commitment therapy.
Yeah.
But let me jump in for a moment, because I'm watching questions come in that I think are also really important that we need to get to. They're all important. And I know we're not going to be able to get to all these questions. So forgive me for jumping in, trying to move it along. But the questions are, what are the signs that I need to seek professional help for my kid? This one person is saying that their 8-year-old is talking to himself, walking and pacing around the house, only wants to talk about video games. They want to know, when do I know that I need to get help for him? How do I distinguish? What are the signs that a child is in need of help?
Okay.
I think your pediatrician is definitely a gatekeeper. So
yeah,
for Brooke, that seems like a question that could be discussed with a pediatrician, correct?
I know for sure to start, absolutely. And we would tease out a few more things, ask a lot of questions to get some more information. I think, of course, always looking at how different is the behavior and what else is going on. Is it only COVID? Is it not only COVID, but is it COVID? Is it e-learning? Do you have other social stressors at home? Did somebody lose a job? We think about adverse childhood events or ACEs, and if you have more than one that are compounding, that'll certainly cause children to be stressed. And I think at any point, if you're concerned or you feel like your child's behavior is abnormal, your parents know their kids best. And so if you're worried, then it's worth looking into. And the worst thing you can do is go see somebody like Lori or Heidi and have them tell you that they think your kid is okay, or give you some stress, give you a few techniques to cope or different things to try. But I really feel that if you're worried about your kid or feel like something is off, that there is no harm or fault in asking for professional evaluation, support, assistance. That's what I usually recommend.
I always look at the different patterns of behavior. Is this something out of the norm or not? And I look at, when I'm looking at, is this an issue? Yeah, we talk about the ACEs, acute events, but is it increasing in frequency, intensity, and is it impeding a child's functioning socially, scholastically, or in the family? I know, Doug, you had your hand up. I don't want to.
Oh, I was just going to say, before, Heidi, you're talking about, setting clear expectations and just, communicating with your teachers. I'm on the idea that no problem is too small to let us know about what's going on, because I'm just seeing like a screen, for a lot of the day. So for an hour at a time, and, we want to help. And if we don't know, even like, hey, something's wrong with my child, we're having some issues, even that's as simple as it needs to be. And we're happy to, consider that when we're working with the kids and trying to work with them over Zoom. So you gotta let us know. That's the best thing you can do for myself.
Something to add to, just real quick.
Sure.
In addition to all those fabulous things, I would definitely, what we know about resiliency and enhancing resiliency of children as well as adults is that relationship and the quality of relationship, the stability and the safety and the nurturing of relationship is one of the key predictors for resiliency. So it kind of also folds back to that joy question as a parent and as adults, like, where do we find joy? How can I build that within myself? And how can I offer that to my children? So if children are getting kind of sucked into video games and there seems to be little balance, children naturally feel better and safer with structure and predictability. So I'm a big believer in family meetings, gathering a talking stick, having everyone sit down, let's craft some new ideas about how our functioning is day to day. And really carving out moments of one-on-one time that can kind of bring back that parent-child joy. And I think you'll see some of the repetitive stress and anxiety worries with children dissipate a little bit. And similar to what Heidi said, really, I really look at, you know, is this a phase, or is this really interfering with the daily functioning of a child in all areas of their life? And definitely, you know, reach out to your medical people, school, teacher, if that's the case.
Mm-hmm. And is the
Right.
behavior age appropriate? Because sometimes behaviors are normal social development, but are still strange and unusual or annoying, or you wish they'd go away, or all of those things, but they're still normal. I always say normal doesn't mean you have to like it. You know, it's normal for an 18-month-old to lay down on the ground and kick and scream and have a nasty old temper. Doesn't mean you have to enjoy any of it. Doesn't mean you have to accept it, but it's normal. So thinking about that in terms of the age of your kid and how they're behaving as well, particularly in the teen years. Also.
Well, you know, particularly, you know, coming off of what you just said, Brooke. So what about a 15-year-old that has a girlfriend and he wants to go out and do what is normal developmental for his age, and yet he's in a family in which the girlfriend's family is very comfortable with letting kids come over and hang out, but they're not comfortable with that. And then the parent is struggling with thinking that, well, if I prevent him from having those kind of social interactions, I love that this person wrote, will he be 35 years old looking back and blaming me for preventing him from having, you know,
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
You can put it on the list. That's what I tell my kids.
they're going to blame you anyway for something.
That's right.
Might as well just add something else.
But no,
Put it on the list.
Right.
but it is a dilemma. I mean, you saw 20
No, absolutely. Yeah.
24 kids from the high school came down with COVID, right? So it really is a kind of a challenge for families to encourage, you know, it's kind of crazy. You know, you want to encourage your kids to have friends, to be out there socially, and yet there is exposure as a result of that. Doug, I was going to ask you, what's your sense of high school kids and their respect or how seriously they're taking, exposure?
I think at first, you know, well, just from my experience, they were taking it very seriously. And I think that frontal lobe is just not fully developed. So that reasoning and thinking piece is not quite there yet. But, you know, I do see some kids wanting to hang out and socialize. And the school is, you know, and I'm trying to do my best to offer like virtual hangouts, but I know it's not the same as in person. But having people constantly just let them know about these are the guidelines you should be following. You know, if you're going to do this, please, as my child, you know, you're putting us all at risk if you're going to be out, you know, in the streets. Make sure that you're wearing a mask, you're being socially distant and washing your hands and just being as safe as you can. But kids are going to do something at the high school age that we don't want them to do. So I guess trying to mitigate those risks as best as possible is the advice I would give to any parents out there. My kids are 4 and 2, so I don't really have to deal with that right now. So I'm taking my notes as the information comes back to me too. But
So you're not recommending that a parent says, if we die, it'll be your fault? Okay, we got that.
No.
No.
I mean, I have college kids and mine have been home, and we've had to really talk with them about what this means, what it means to socially distance. My husband and I have had to look into like, well, what are we comfortable with, not comfortable with in terms of the guidelines? I think what's hard is there is no fast and hard rule for each and every family. Yes, there's the guidelines and those should be followed, but we have to have our own comfort level. And we really try to keep our level of communication and trust and honesty open. And that if they are honest with us about, okay, they were all in a car together one time. This was, you know, they all had masks on, but they were in a car. And I'm going, wait, what are you guys doing? Now this was before when it was like a level, I don't know, one of the older levels, but instead of berating them and saying what this is, because that is going to be an automatic shut down and they're never going to talk to you. Okay. But that doesn't mean, even though I may validate their feelings and understand it, doesn't necessarily mean I agree. So I want to emphasize, because parents think that if you validate or try to understand a teenager's feelings, that you're agreeing with them. But it's about the conversation and being honest and working together. Because the way I look at it, they're going to go and do it anyway. I have more of a chance of getting and shaping behavior if I'm honest and we try to talk it through.
Yeah. So
One thing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to piggyback on that, but it's sort of an expansion of this. how do you talk to young children in particular about the pandemic, about safety, without frightening them to think that they cannot form relationships with people, that the world is a scary place? I mean, we can, you know, really instill a lot of fear, a sense of danger in people, if, especially in young children, when they see people walking around in masks. How do we help children to see this? What's the kind of spin to put on this to help children not be frightened in their life?
I wanted to add just one thing, if I could, just on the teen and socializing. As a former high school social worker, one of the best things that I would work with teens on is exit strategies. Because conversely, we're talking about the kids in this scenario that are going out and they think the risk might be minimal. But there's also, at the other end of the spectrum, you have some anxious teens that are really worried, right? And suddenly they're in a social situation, they think it's safe, and then as social situations inherently change and evolve as the day or the night goes on over time, really talking with your kids about what does an exit strategy look like, and having, so a teen could save face with their friends and not feel embarrassed. I think that is the number one fear of all teens, is that they're going to be embarrassed. And so having those conversations ahead of time, I just think is so key with teens and adolescents. But sorry, I just wanted to make that point, Stephen, but we can definitely segue to talks with younger children.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brooke, do you want to take it, or do you want me to start?
I can start. I think that a couple of things. One, for the really younger kids, I think less is more. Very simple, clear statements. You know, there's a nasty bug going around. It makes people sick. We wear masks to be healthy and safe. Like, end of story. And then you don't need to elaborate unless they have questions. And then I think it's important to be careful not to implant questions inadvertently or suggest questions. One of my favorite strategies when a kid asks a question is to say, well, what do you think? Because then that lets me know where their brain is. Because my brain immediately goes to 16 different grown-up things. And then, you know, like, how are babies born? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. But then I say, well, what do you think? Well, you know, I think, you know, mommy and daddy kissed and the baby comes out. Great, that sounds just fine for you, 4-year-old, or, you know, or whatever is age appropriate, then you can adjust. So I would say it's similar concepts for the pandemic and questions around the pandemic. What do you think? What are you noticing? What are you observing? And then taking their lead from there, rather than going down a giant rabbit hole of adult anxieties and concerns that you're having. It helps you that we're all having, but it helps you tailor the discussion in an age-appropriate way to what your kid is really worried about. Because the other risk too is that you start talking about something that was not really what they were asking, because you didn't clarify what they were asking.
Right.
So that's what I do.
Heidi, were you going to add anything on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like with the young kids, simple. There's a bad bug, or for other kids, they know what virus going around, and you know, we just have to try to be. Some people are getting sick, and we're going to take precautions like washing our hands and keeping our space and wearing a mask, because that's what the doctors and scientists say we do.
Yeah.
And it's your tone of voice too. You know, if you go, the doctors and scientists tell, you know, you can say it in a way that doesn't come across as threatening or anxiety provoking too. But in order to do that, again, you have to check in with yourself about what your level, your anxiety meter is doing, or concern that's happening. But I don't give more to little kids or older kids unless they start asking. And I like what Brooke said, just say, well, what is it you know about it? Because a lot of times what they're thinking is, well, does this mean I can have a different mask in every place?
Right.
You know, they're not thinking, they just want to know how many masks they can have, or do they get to have a shield too? You know,
Right.
And so you want to ask those questions and come from a place of curiosity of what's your understanding. And the other part too would be, I would watch, at least for the younger ones, just how much news media or science stuff is floating around, because that is where you can get more anxiety than you're ready to engage.
I
in.
really like to, Lori, I know, wanted to emphasize the concept of resilience in this time and how to help build resilience. And so around those little kids and their anxieties and not worrying about, you know, the world coming to an end, is to talk about, like Heidi said too, what we can control. So this is what's happening. We can't change that right this second, but like I said, we can wear masks, we can socially distance, we can wash our hands, we can still chat with our friends. You know, these are the things we can do.
All
and we
the things.
control. And to spin it in a positive, resilient way, rather than a this is what we've lost.
Okay.
Picture.
Absolutely.
So let me just sort of throw in, you know, some of this has sort of a non sequitur quality to it, because there are questions that are coming in from all over the place, from what to do with the holidays to questions about how do parents approach teachers and administrators when they are really struggling with the amount of Zoom time or with the work that's being presented. I guess, you know, how to approach the educators in a way that creates an alliance and a partnership rather than adversity. And suppose, Laura, you may have a
I can definitely speak to that. I definitely, you know, as Heidi and some other panelists mentioned before, some parents are like, this really is working well for my kid, you know, and some people opposite, right? Like it's just too much. So really, I would say really establishing that relationship with your child's teacher or teachers if your child is older, and really from the get-go figuring out the best way to communicate with your child's teacher, and knowing that teachers are on Zoom all day, they can't respond to an email immediately, and having some grace in that for a thoughtful response back. We're D97, I imagine D200 is a very email heavy district. So I think assume like if you didn't, you know, it's okay to resend like, hey, just putting this at the top of your inbox, please, you know, can we set up a problem solving phone call? And I would definitely communicate behaviors that you're seeing at home with your child or concerns with their interaction via Zoom platform, or engaging or not engaging. And then your teacher can kind of gauge, you know, set up a plan with you. Like some teachers are saying, okay, well, some kids are very nervous about having their face on the screen, so there's a way they can hide their view. Or if there's too much distraction, get rid of the grid view and just have the speaker view. And I think all those little things can be problem solved with your child's teacher, and so you can really figure out the expectation.
Mm-hmm. Doug, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, there's just, you know, for the students that I work with, there's a lot to manage, you know, with going to new classes and trying to be more like the 9th grade, 10th grade, the parents trying to give them more independence, but not trying to be too involved too much. But I would just say, you know, at this point, you know, this is not what we normally do. So, you know, please reach out to your child's teachers, like Lori was saying, and just ask for like a clear expectation, a clear explanation of what, you know, they can expect from the teacher in terms of like their grading practices. Share with us what you're seeing at home. Ask for extra support for help for your kid if they're struggling. And for me, I'm trying to be more aware of actually picking up the phone, to reaching out to parents via that way, because the email, you know, a lot gets lost in the email. So trying to schedule a time to meet with your teacher via phone, or even like a Zoom or a Google Meets, whatever your districts are using, would be very, very helpful to us in supporting your child. Because, you know, I get it, like an hour-long Zoom in a class it's hard to really keep people engaged without giving like mindfulness breaks and check-ins and breathing stuff, and, you know, in and out of breakout rooms. It's like, it's not the same. So like Heidi was saying too earlier, just acknowledging what's happening and like giving clear expectations of your child and of yourself, and keeping the relationship at the front of everything at the house, I think is most important. And as those things are taken care of, then the learning can actually really begin to happen again.
So, I'm sorry.
I have to add some too.
Okay, just mine will be 30 seconds. And if you do notice a problem, really the best way, you know, avoid the temptation of copying in like 10 people, because then no one owns the situation, right? Like your teacher is your first point person. They know your kid best. aside from you as the parent. So really, and start there, but certainly get other people involved if, you know, the situation isn't able to be resolved. But maybe, you know, come with some ideas, what you'd like to see happen. And I think people can be flexible and work out a good plan. Go ahead, Heidi. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, and well, this is something that I've had a lot of my clients that deal with, and I would be interested also just to hear as educators what you guys, but a number of kids, because they either have an iPad or a Chromebook, they have to have the computer on. The regular computer screen, you know, lockdown parent controls won't work because they have to be on it. And so the kid will be working, the mom is around or dad's around, then all of a sudden when no one's looking, they're on YouTube right away because that's open and you can't shut down YouTube because, you know, they're supposed to watch something. You know, the way I've worked with that, and again, I bring this up because this is one of the, if not the first, the second problem that parents are having. And so then what happens, the homework doesn't get done at all, staying up late at night, and it just cascades into a lot of issues and problems. I mean, I, of course, try to coach the parents and the kids I work with about what can they work on, how do we set up a time where you're just trying to get your work done, helping them build the motivation to doing good scheduling and expectations, and saying, okay, if I work for this amount of time, then I can go on a YouTube for 5 minutes, and getting the kid involved. Do you think that you know, most of the time the kids want to get their work done. They don't want to do it, but they want to get it done and feel good about it. So in order to get to that goal, what do we need to do? So you bring the kids in to try to set some limits on themselves. But from educators, do you have anything to add to parents? I'm sure you probably hear that too.
I do, and Doug, I bet this is probably your area. I would also challenge that even in in-person learning, it's an issue. You know, students have one-on-one devices, and even with teachers roaming the classroom, they are minimizing tabs and hopping on stuff. And I look at it, and I have a teenager at home, and I do spot checks to make sure he's, you know, where he needs to be, and frequent conversations with what Heidi was saying. Like, look, you know, you could have swaths of time on the Saturday and Sunday to do X, Y, Z if you just were productive during this time during the day. And I think really helping kids with that executive functioning ability of like, I'm going to set a timer and organize myself for 10 minutes and be really focused and then reward myself. I'm going to put my phone over here so it's not within my field of vision because I know I'll grab it. Or parents taking at least that tool away. Kids have a lot of tools, you know, obviously they're using their computer so they can have a YouTube tab open. I know I tell kids, just don't even have the tabs open because it's too easy to click. You know, if you have to create a new tab and do that, that's one extra step. So make it a little bit harder, I would say. But Doug, I'm sure you deal with this all the time with teens.
Yes, because well, we have, so for my setup, I was a former tech leader. I'm okay with technology, but we are able to actually kind of monitor during the day what the kids are doing. So I can actually see all the screens at once. I can close tabs, open tabs, whatever the case may be. But that doesn't mean that they're engaged necessarily, right? They're gonna have everything open and just sitting there and doing, you know, just looking off, you know, at the stars in the sky and having a nice little dream. But, you know, really, you know, in our class, we try to, you know, work for 15 minutes, give a minute break, do that same kind of routine, because my thought is that, you know, you can only hold your attention for how old you are. So if you're 15 years old, I got you for 15 minutes at a time. I'm not going to try to, you know, stretch this out for an hour. It's just not going to work. But like the experts were saying, like, how do you find that balance between monitoring your kids' devices, giving them independence, while holding them accountable to their actual learning is a real challenge every day. And I'm going to say it again, just acknowledging that this is not school. You know, it is school, but it's not like traditional school. So it is hard. And letting us know what you're seeing is very, very helpful to us improving our, you know, teaching moving forward.
You know, it's really kind of a time of great paradox because parents have spent so much time trying to get their kids off the screen. And now there's the encouragement to stay on the screen. And there are some detrimental aspects of being with headphones all day, or just, staring at a screen all day. Many parents are having struggles with, during the school week, they're on screens all day, and then the kids want to stay on their screens all weekend as well. And, there's enough evidence to talk about the addiction. Heidi, you and Isaac had done that really great presentation on technology's effect on families. Anybody have anything to say about the way of really timing out from these screens and from technology from a health perspective?
Well, I really look at what needs to be included in, whether it's my day or my client's day, and I get them talking about what works for them, that they want to do. And, is it going outside? Is it reading some books? Is it doing quiet time? Well, how do we fit all those in? And before sometimes you do the tech stuff, there's a behavioral principle called you do the thing you don't want to do as much before you get the reward of doing that. So I would start there. Now, that's not to say, I'm not trying to be rigid. There's times where it works better if some kids, if they can be on tech, but then turn it off and then move on to something else, that's fine. There's no problem there. This is for the kids who can't get off. But so you look at, what do I hope and what does my kid want to do for the day? What do I want them? What's my hope for them? Do we read some? Does there some quiet time studying? And how do you put that all into the day before you just use screens, not for learning?
One of the things that I've suggested with many families is they're getting their extended families to send letters in the mail. And so kids are getting personal letters from grandparents, from aunts and uncles, from other cousins, actually creating what used to be, pen pals. And it at least is, you get something in the mail in an envelope, it's unusual, right? A lot of kids don't even get that anymore. Or nor adults get that anymore. I can't believe if I get a personal card in the mail. So that could encourage reading. There's some families that are writing out everything for the kids. They're not texting them and they're not sending them emails. They're literally handwriting out suggestions for the day or chores to do, just to literally get their eyes off the screen. So I just wanted to throw that in. And I do like that idea of having extended family engaged in writing to each other, really personal letters. Yeah.
I love that too. I like some families are doing, book read alouds with grandchildren, so the grandchildren are reading to the grandparents, a novel. So there are some, creative ways that it doesn't have to be just video games and that sort of thing. I really like, really just developing back to kids' awareness, like noticing like, hey, I've had this with my own children over the years when they were young. I noticed your mood changes when you've watched a YouTube video or you watch this cartoon, you just don't seem as happy. You seem a little crabby. Do you notice that too? I wonder if that, and kind of those questions, and kids then kind of learn slowly, like to be healthy, I need X, Y, Z. I can't, even though I love YouTube, I'm not really happy if I watch 10 hours of it. I may binge it and think I like it, but then, getting them to the point of where they have some ideas about how to have a little bit more balance and offering them that. Well, we all need creative time. We all need some downtime. We all need some exercise and really helping kids brainstorm what that looks like for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that the two educators that we have here on the panel look very healthy. What are District 97 and D200 doing to help teachers stay mentally well? Because I know that this has also been a huge challenge for the educators to be able to bring this to kids. I mean, I hear that teachers are working harder than they ever did, harder than even being in class. Thoughts, is there anything in the system that is extra support or encouragement for staff?
I mean, oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, our colleagues are, my biggest support in the building. Some people don't necessarily have that, they're new to the building, but we're always offered, extra mental support. We're always encouraged to take care of ourselves first by the administration and our friends and our colleagues. So this, what I feel from the school is that they're really, really, really trying to make sure that, the wellness is at the center of everything that we're doing. And this was prior to, like this all shut down too. So we had it kind of going with the administration turnover. But yes, because for me to be on a Zoom all day and then try to deal with my own 2 children, it is stressful. So I think having parents just acknowledge that there is, people with, similar circumstances that they're going through too, is huge. I had a phone call with a parent the other day. She's like, I'm a teacher too. I have to go in the building. I'm like, wow, I didn't even, realize that you were going through this. And I was calling to complain about her kid, which wasn't very helpful, but we ended up, figuring it out. But, just the school is definitely, aware of what we need to do to stay mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. At our Institute days, self-care is a forefront. And we have staff members kind of leading that charge, and the district has been responsive to just the need for time for planning. Our district has scheduled some remote learning planning days, and that's been helpful, recognizing that the workload of teachers has increased, and a lot of, colleagues sharing. So that's been a real gift, actually. So.
Mm-hmm. There was a question, I don't know if who out there might be able to answer it, about children with special needs when they begin to have in-class learning. I think there are some people that are back. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
At the middle school, there's some kids that are back. I know the district is really evaluating what that would look like, and in talks with, what are the matrix in the community. They meet with the, the health board to kind of discuss some of those things. So I think, parents should really know that those are things that are really being looked at in the district. And I think in my talk with parents and community members, Oak Park is a very diverse place and diversity of opinion as well. So there's a lot of feelings on that, both for and against, if any of that were to happen. So I think I would encourage people to, stay the course and really, communicate with your teacher and administrators about what you're seeing. I know early on, there was a fear of like too much interactive screen time, and really that was a pivot that the district did in response to parent request. And the feeling is that hopefully as kids learn these platforms, they can move to about 40% asynchronous time. So yeah, I think, things are constantly evolving as people give feedback and as things are working or not working.
Yeah, I would just add that, I don't speak for the school, I speak for me. So, you can check the board minutes. There's from both the 97 and 200, everything's, in there for the public to kind of look over at your, when you're ever able to. And there are, there are some dates in there about bringing certain classes back and certain populations back. It's just like, it's a lot of moving parts. You bring 2 kids back, you gotta, there's, over 400 staff in that building. So it's like a lot of pieces you got to put together, and putting safety at the forefront is, kind of key for everyone in that building.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that we have, maybe 15 minutes, and what we're going to do is we're going to introduce some of the programs that Thrive does offer in the last 15 minutes here. So I just wanted to know if you as the panel have any questions that you wish were asked of you tonight. Because, there really are a lot of questions that we're not going to be able to get to. It's been a wonderful group of participants who've been filling up the question and answer board here. Some of them overlap for sure. And so hopefully we've covered a wide enough of the topics. Obviously, we're not going to get to everybody here tonight. I think if anything, it really speaks to the need to have some kind of forum, because there are questions here about how do we navigate the holidays? What do we do with that? I mean, I could throw that question out here. I saw that one pop up. It's just really great questions that I know each one could probably be a topic unto themselves. But Heidi, sure.
Yeah, if I had to kind of sum up just a few things of, I kind of like what I've been saying is like the 3 C's. It's consistency, connection, and providing care, physical and emotional. So consistency in parenting and structure, that doesn't, I say go for the 85% rule. Nobody's going to be perfect, right? So try to be consistent and add structure to the day, because kids and adult kids do well too in terms of when you know what to expect. All right. That said, you have to have some flexibility because there's many moving parts, but connection, having connections with people, because there's so much isolation that's going on. Wherever you can try to make some physical connections, that again, within COVID parameters, safety parameters is important. And then that physical care, where sleeping, eating, exercising, doing mindfulness. There's many things out there, Mind Yeti, Cosmic Kids, Go Zen, wonderful programs out there for kids to use, and adults will learn from them too. So all of those pieces, I think, again, consistency, connection, and care. And if just listen, don't move to fix. Listen to your kids, listen to the feeling. Don't jump in and fix right away, because a lot of times we just want to feel understood.
That's great. I wanted to just say something that I hear a lot in my work as a family therapist, and I realized I never introduced myself at the beginning of this.
Steve, that guy.
I'm that guy. Your relationship with your children is more important than getting them to get the homework done. That is the priority. And, you know, the opportunity for parents to feel tremendous anxiety that their kids are going to fall behind academically, that feeling a tremendous amount of responsibility to make sure their kids get everything done. And they will sacrifice the peace and harmony of a family in order to ensure that happens. And I do want to really emphasize that your relationship with your child is the priority. And talking about the struggles, the challenges of this is an opportunity for you to actually develop a closer relationship with your kid. You know, we are all going through the struggles of uncertainty and the disruption of the familiar. And it really is an opportunity to model and demonstrate for kids, how do we adjust to something we don't want? How do we deal with something that was so unexpected? So I just wanted to add that your relationship is the priority, not the homework at this point. It's essential just to stress that.
Yep. And a lot of these decisions are, I 100% agree with that, Steve, because that is very key and crucial. But some of the questions we heard and some of the questions in the chat are, as Doug mentioned, about risk and risk mitigation, and just analyzing what question is in front of you. So what does my teenager want to do today, and what is the risk in that? And am I comfortable with that risk, or is the risk too great? And is the consequence too great? What is the worst thing I think that could happen? And if that happened, would it really be that awful, or would we get through it? Would it be okay? And so then is it worth the risk to help them make that choice or make that decision or feel better for their mental health, or is it not today? And what evidence do I know? What evidence don't I know? And what are the pros and cons? And then just do the best you can to make a decision, and to try to feel comfortable in knowing that there may be a consequence. And if you've thought through it, then that hopefully consequence is not too great. Or if you think it will be too great, then you choose not to do it. Mm-hmm. And helping your kid think through that too, especially the older kids, especially the best you can. I think that's sort of what Heidi was talking to too, with the older kids, the older teens and the college age students. And like Doug said, their frontal lobe is not fully developed. So you're helping them mold that giant ball of clay that's just sitting there in a big lump. So that's a nice version of what I call it in my house. But to think, and that answer to risk is going to be very different for every family and every situation. And in that way, it's the same answer that regular life is. Like, well, why does Susie get to do blah, 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 and I don't? Well, you know, that's Susie's family's choice for whatever, and this is our family's choice, and this is why. And so to extrapolate that skill set and risk to this, I think, is how I've been trying to survive.
Thanks, Brooke. Any other final comments, because we really want to present in the last 15 minutes the 3 programs that Thrive is offering. And we have 3 therapists from Thrive who are going to just briefly mention what services are available. And then I think we're going to introduce very briefly what the next Thrive Talk will be in October. And then we also have resources to put up. If I'm getting all that straight, Wynn, you can give me the nods on that. I think that's what we're going to do. Any final 1 or 2 minute?
Just thanks for coming.
This is your finale,
Yeah.
Doug. Your finale, Doug.
As I've actually learned a lot, and you know, just to hearing these different parts come together with our students and our loved ones is, you know, pretty special to see everyone here trying to figure this out. And we all don't have all the answers, but we all have some tools that we can, as Steve put it in the flyer, calm the chaos. So thank you for organizing this.
Well,
Thank you.
well, I really appreciate you coming on this panel and offering your time. You know, it's been consuming. We've had several meetings of this, and you guys have been just so great to work with, and really appreciate Thrive Talk. So worthwhile. And I'm hoping some comments were, thank you, this was a wonderful conversation. This has been so encouraging to me. Thank you for your positivity. Thank you for all your responses and information. So there are a lot of people jumping on and offering us their appreciation. I know I'm appreciative of what you've been offering. So now for those that are still hanging in there, let's introduce some of the programs that are available. And we have therapists here. Why don't we start with Javier, who can talk about, Javier Sanchez, a therapist at Thrive. He has this program called Living Out Loud. Javier?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, so I run the LOL program, and basically, you know, it's a support group that explores values like accountability, integrity, self-determination, and visionary goal setting. And it's basically a space where teens find ways to incorporate those values in their lives in a tangible way. A part of our group is social emotional learning and creating a safe space for teens to build community with each other and normalize the beautiful, complicated experience of growing up. You know, we've tackled a lot of, in the last 2 years that this group has been running, a lot's happened. We've tackled a lot of different issues, I think, in a way that some of the feedback that I get from our group members that in other parts of their life, they don't really get an opportunity to quite process it the same way as they would in group. It's a neat space. I really enjoy this group, like genuinely. If you're interested in having your team be a part of it, it's open to high school students. We meet Wednesdays, 4:30 to 6 on Zoom. And that's kind of like the bit of it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at either of the numbers on
Yeah, we'll have the
paper. Yeah, I can't see it because I have all the buttons for Zoom. But
we'll get it to people.
Yeah.
So who would be next? Is it Daisy? Are you talking next about the let's see, where are we at? What's the next group that we're going to talk about? Coping Cat? Is that you, Daisy?
Yes.
Okay. Daisy Rios is a therapist, manager at Thrive. Thanks, Daisy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I just wanted to quickly introduce our anxiety group that we're going to be having. It's going to start the second week in October, Coping Cat. So Coping Cat is kind of changing anxious thinking, and it kind of focuses on some of those anxious behaviors and thoughts that are kind of happening for our 7th and 8th graders right now. Just kind of taking that SEL piece and working with that, and just kind of looking at all kinds of things that are affecting our youth right now, especially peer relationships and how that aspect, especially in the Zoom world, and like kind of losing those connections and anxiety around that. And, you know, just we've adapted it to Zoom. So we know that's kind of hard with the school kids during the week. So we've actually moved it to Saturdays now to kind of relieve some of that screen time during the week. So we'll be having it on Saturdays, every other Saturday from 1 to 2. It is open to Oak Park River Forest residents as well as the surrounding areas.
Thanks, Daisy. Excellent. Lori Johnson does the SIB shop, is it, Lori?
Yep, SIB shops. Yep. Hi, I'm Lori Johnson, therapist at Thrive. And I'm going to talk a little bit about SIB shops. So SIB shops is a group. It's for siblings of kids with special needs. So this could mean any developmental disability, a physical disability, or any mental health challenges. And we have also recently adapted, over the summer it started, the format to be over Zoom. And we had good turnout, good show of support from the kids and good feedback. So we're continuing that in the fall. The dates are listed on the flyer. We've had one session so far. And then our next session is going to be October 3rd. And then it's basically the first and third Saturdays of every month through the 19th of December. The cost is $5. If you're interested in having your kid participate, you can register on the Thrive website. Or if you want to send a check our way, that's cool too. Just make it out to Thrive Counseling Center. But the group is really just aimed at supporting the brothers and sisters of kids with special needs, because like usually at home they might not get, you know, the attention that the other siblings are getting. So this is really their space to have fun and to just, you know, have a good time with kids who get it. And then just to discuss, you know, more serious issues too as they come up. It's a lot of relating. It's a good time overall. We play games. It's a good mixture of fun and serious topics. So come check it out. We would love to have more kids.
That's great, Lori. Thank you. As you get a sense that Thrive really is looking to provide programs, and this is the talk that I'm giving on October 29th, just in time for the election, I would say. When I am so right and you are so wrong, it's the art of disagreeing. And I will be presenting it in probably a webinar. I really wish it could be in person, but it's not going to be that way. So hopefully you could mark your calendars for October 29th for this upcoming Thrive Talk. There will be 2 more Thrive Talks this year to be announced. We realize that there's so many things changing so quickly in our society now that to anticipate where we will be after the new year, we just decided to hold off and to really address something that has been revealed as very important for the community. So there will be 2 more talks. And lastly, I think we have some resources for people to copy down to be able to use. But as that's up there, I do want to say that one of the things about Thrive is that we really need the support of the community. We are a nonprofit. We are always operating in the red. And so, you know, the galas, the fundraisers that we've had traditionally are now not going to be able to take place the way they did. And so we really would appeal to the community to be able to support Thrive in any way that you can. That would really be a tremendous help for all of us. So I think with that, we're pretty close to the end here. I just want to thank the 1,200,000 people that joined tonight. That was really absolutely fabulous, big turnout. And hopefully we will see you all at another time. Wynn, any final thoughts on your end, or do you think we're there?
Yes, I do. Actually, I would love to direct everyone to the chat. I'm going to be entering some ways for you to contact us, a survey that we'd love for you to take 3 minutes to fill out if you have the time before you sign off. And again, just if you need to contact, I'm going to put my email in there. So I'm just going to be doing that in the chat while you're wrapping up, Steve.
Oh, I thought I did wrap up.
Do a dance or something.
Well, how about Javier doesn't need me. No, I really appreciate how many people have hung in here. There's still 70 people who have stayed on, and we were literally over 100 at our peak here. So, you know, again, I want to invite everybody back to some of the talks that we have, and I want to thank again the panel for participating in this. And I know what I'd like to say. We really are welcoming the ideas from the community as to the talks moving forward. We really do want to hear what it is you would like for us to be addressing in this community. And I would imagine, Wynn, people could contact you was it W. Lacey at?
Yeah, I'm putting that in there too. I just put in the contact, there's a contact form you can reach. There's a donate page, and there's also a quick survey. It's literally like 3 minutes.
Okay, so please take the survey. It's going to really help us moving forward in developing these programs. And we really do wish, you know, we've made this appeal every year to ask for people to submit ideas. And I think this is the year it's going to happen. So hopefully it'll happen. So I think we're there. And thank you and good night to all those that joined us tonight. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're just going to leave up for a couple more minutes if you guys want to grab the links in the chat room. Hopefully you guys are getting in that survey. We really need your feedback. You can also enter your emails in the survey, extra questions you have. We can throw those out to our therapist and get back to you directly about their amazing opinions and thoughts on your questions.
Yeah. Thanks.
This was great. It went so fast.
Steve, you could work for NPR during drive time.
All right, I'm going to stop recording.